Okay, you want to remove the air intake tube from the air cleaner assembly. There's 3 screws and they're T30 Torx. And then you got a 10mm bolt right here. Just like that. Got those 3 and that one, and then a clamp, which is an 8mm. And then you got your breather tube right here. You need to take this little gray thing and push it over there. Sometimes there's a stop on the bottom, so you gotta pick it up a little bit and push it that way, and lift the whole hose up, and it comes out. And once you get that clamp loose, you can pull on a wiggle and get it off of the throttle body. And you come over here and you'll lift the air cleaner out of the little tabs down below, because it, clips into it. Then you need to remove your mass airflow, throttle body, mass airflow sensor. It's got these little gray things in there. You gotta separate them up with a flat blade screwdriver. Then you can push on the tab. If you don't push that up, you can't push on the tab. Once you push on that tab, you can pull the connector off, okay? Now you can pull this whole thing up out of here. You gotta weasel it though. All right, to get to the thermostat, you need to remove the upper hose. I removed it from here. Has a spring clamp on it. Spring clamp, remove the spring clamp. Get your screwdriver in there and pry it away. The hose off of there best you can. Try not to tear it. Just work it around because it kind of like bonds onto it. And then on this clip here, you need to lift it up. You need to lift this section up and then you pry the other piece off. Okay, those clips on each other and you can pull that hose out of there. And then you need to come down here where the thermostat's at and you need to remove this wire harness off of the stud for the thermostat. It's just a little metal bracket, pushes on there, and then they don't push off. You end up bending the crap out of them, pushing them off. But get it off best you can, pry bar. Then you get a 10mm bolt, deep wall socket, 1/4 inch. Remove that bolt. And then 180 from it is another bolt. And let's see if I can show it to you. I got it sticking out already. There it is, sticking out. Okay. Got to it with a 1/4 inch ratchet with the shorty and a 2-inch extension. And I'll finish taking that short bolt out, and then I'll get this studded bolt out, and then that whole assembly, the whole lower hose and the thermostat housing will come off. If you want, you can undo the spring clamp and do all that, but it ain't not worth it. If the spring clamp's in the way, then you just gotta move it out of the way a little bit. But right now it wasn't in the way. I'm sure you're already aware to stick a drain pan underneath here to catch your fluid for your coolant. So, all right. Now I need to break that one loose. Just go like that, tap on. All my fluid's hopefully going into my drain pan. If I miss some, then I'll just mop it up. But I'll let it drain like that for a little while. And when it's done draining, I'll stick my hand down there and lift that housing up a little bit and pull my thermostat out. Okay, I pulled it up so you can at least look at it, get an idea. All right, when you pull the thermostat off of here, out of the housing, just pull it out. But when you get it off, you need to clean all this up. Get all that surface nice and clean. And if you're having a problem with the thermostat code and you want to look at this thermostat, you can see that seal is disformed right there. It comes out and came out of it. It's coming apart. So that's not allowing your thermostat to function properly. It's like it's stuck open a little bit. Okay. And this, you just pry it out. Okay, comes right out of there. And so you can see through it. Okay, it's like it's stuck open. All right, So that's a good thing you see that for that code, because most of the time you don't see nothing. But this is proof there's something wrong with it, okay? All right, now that you got the housing cleaned up, and hopefully you got the block cleaned up, free of rust, because rust, basically it expands, and if it got enough rust expanding in there, then you're not gonna get a nice, clean, true surface to help seal it with that seal that's on the thermostat. I'll use a mirror so I can look down in there to make sure my surface looks good. And I'll use a angle die grinder with a Rolex where's mine at? Where is mine? But anyway, these things, okay? Get down in there, clean it up best you can. Try not to remove any metal. Put your new thermostat in your housing. Mine's a CarQuest. It doesn't fit in there tight, loosely. So when I angle it down there, it's gonna fall out. So I'll put a little bit of silicone around my seal to help hold it in there a little bit. And then I'm gonna guide it down there, and then I'm gonna push it on, and I'll get my other bolt with my stud sticking out of it, and I'll start that one first and run it up as far as I can. Make sure you have your 1/4" ratchet ready with your socket. So when you do get it started, you can hold it up in there, and then get your other hand and run that bolt up. But do not tighten it, because you need to get the other one started also. Okay, I got it down in there. I don't have it tight. I held the thermostat in there as I pushed it down in there, because you have to push it towards the fan a little bit to get it past the housing, and then you can stick it in there. And then the hose kind of held it up in there a little bit tight, so it didn't allow the thermostat to drop out. And I had a little gap so I could actually see it sitting in there. And I got my bolt started, and then I ran it up with my 1/4" ratchet, but it's still loose. I got a little gap, so now I'm gonna go down with my other hand down below and get the other one started. Got the bottom bolt started, and then I used my 1/4" ratchet, and I used a 2" extension with this swivel 10. That worked the best. And I just used the deep wall on the other one with the stud. I tightened them up. They're only 1/4". They're probably not even 15 foot-pounds, but they're really small. So just tighten them up and remember how small they are. All right, and then next you need to put that wire harness back on the stud. Okay, if you're gonna just do the thermostat, then now you can put it back together. You can put your hose back on, put your spring clamp on, put your retainer clip back on it to hold it up here, the fastener. And then you can put your air intake tube on and tighten your clamp on your hose, your 10, and then the 3 screws and your mass airflow sensor. But if you're gonna do the sensor, which I'm gonna do also, you need to lift the little tab off the sensor. Sensor's right here on the back of the head. And I'll get a 19 deep and an extension and get it out to over here, and I'll remove it. Okay, I got a deep 19 on it with a 1" extension. Before I could put a socket on it, I had to move the ground over, because the ground cable was in the way. Let's see if you can see it. See it right there? Right here. There's the ground cable. It's going underneath my socket. And that's a 15. I had to loosen the 15, push my cable down because it was right in the way of my socket. So I couldn't put my socket on there. So I pushed the cable down and retightened that nut. Okay? So now I got my socket on there, and now I can loosen it up and remove my sensor. Okay, there's my old one. Got a gasket on it. Here's my new one. I have to install the gasket on it. It's a tight fit, so you have to thread the gasket onto this sensor. have to use a pair of pliers and then possibly your hand or a wrench and thread it down on it while you're holding the washer with a pair of pliers. And it goes right on there with your fingers, no big deal. Okay, now it's already got the sealer on the threads, so now you can screw it into the back of the head and tighten it up. Don't bear down on it too much, but you still gotta tighten it up decent because you don't want to snap it off inside there. It might be like a 30 foot-pounds, so who knows. All right, I got the coolant sensor in there, and the torque is 15 foot-pounds. That's a little high on that, I'd say. So, but that's what the spec says, 15 foot-pounds. All right, so now it's in there. So now you do is plug it in and make sure you plug it in straight. You don't want to push it in crooked and bend the tabs, the metal tabs inside there, terminals. So make sure you push it on straight, okay? Okay, got the thermostat done and the coolant temp sensor done. And if that's all you're doing, you want to make sure you got your hose on, your clamp on, your retainer clamp on, your upper intake tube on, you fasten your hose clamp, tighten your 10mm bolt, plug in your mass airflow sensor, put your air cleaner top back on, make sure it's into the little slits in the front, and then put your 3 screws on, and that's it. And then put your coolant in it and let it run and top it off when it's hot, and make sure you got heat. Make sure you clear your codes, okay? And then go drive it and make sure it's good. Now if you're gonna keep on going and replace this crossover pipe, it's actually the alternator bracket, power steering bracket, and also part of this upper hose and the water pump bypass. So we need to remove all this to get access to it. So we need to remove the air cleaner box. To remove the air cleaner box, you got 3 10mm bolts. Okay. One big washer there, another big washer there, and down here was the little washer right here. That should be right here, there, and there. Don't lose the clips. If they're gonna fall off, just go ahead and take them. All right, so then this AC line's got a clamp. Push the clamp up. And this AC line here, gotta push in. It goes into here. Just pull it up, no big deal. And then push this off to the side. Twist the housing a little bit, and you can pull the whole thing up. Okay, you got the air box out of the way. Now you need to do is remove the motor mount. Supports the engine, you remove it, the engine drops. So jack up the front of the car a little bit. And what I did was stuck some wood inside my drain pan. Got my drain pan centered in the front here so I can catch as much as possible. Put 2 blocks of piece of wood underneath it, inside the drain pan, so it will actually support the oil pan and the exhaust at the same time, because the exhaust is right in the front. And I lower the car down on it, and then I can remove the bolts. 3 bolts, 15, 2 nuts, 18. Okay, there's the bolts and there's the nuts. Okay, I had to redo my wood because it didn't allow it to go up high enough so I could get access to my front motor mount engine bracket bolts. Okay, I can get to 3 of them now. Now I have to raise it up, and I can get to the other one on the bottom through the wheel well. And I'll just show you my blocks here so you got an idea of what's going on. You know how high it is, okay? Those are like 4x4s, and they're like 6 inches long. Okay? One's 6 and one's 4. That's the height. Okay? Because I had it one way, it wasn't lifted up high enough. Okay. Now it's perfect, but it still don't go high enough because now I'm going to be putting too much stress on my axle shafts, so half shaft. So that's good enough. So all we need to do is remove these 3 bolts, and then we'll have to raise it up and remove the one down below. and get that mount out of there. And then I'll work on the belts and that after that. Okay, there's that bracket. Got an 18 and 3 15s. You might want to remove this one first and loosen these up, and then remove this one first and then take these out, okay? Otherwise you take those out and then work on this one last, and the whole thing swings down and puts a little bit of tension on it and makes it a little bit harder to get out. So, but anyway, to get access to that, you need to jack it up, remove the tire, remove this inner fender well piece of plastic, bend it over, and bungee cord it up somewhere underneath the bottom, not to the grill. It's got 3, those push-in clips, 4 of them. Got one, there's 4 of them on there anyway. And they go into the frame and up in there. And then it's right here where it's located. So I removed that. So now I can lower it back down and work on getting my belt off and doing that. All right, next you want to do is remove the belt. Draw yourself a little diagram how the belt is routed, so that way you don't have to look it up. Draw a little map, and then you want to get your 3/8 ratchet, long one, stick it in the tensioner, and then you want to push it down because you want that pulley to be lifted up to release the tension on that belt. Then you can remove the belt off of a smooth pulley, and then you can take the belt out of there. Next, you want to find your battery and disconnect the negative cable. Underneath this cover, it's got a lock here and a lock there. You push those in and releases it, and you can remove it. Disconnect your battery. Now we'll come back over here. You might want to just take a picture of it so you can get a mental note of your pulleys, because you want to remove this pulley and that pulley. Okay, those 2 pulleys, the bottom one was a 13, the top one's a 15. Kind of hard to screw them up. Next, we want to remove the power steering pump. There's 3 bolts holding it on. You can go through there to get to them. Okay, get them 3 bolts out. Then you can move the pump a little bit. Then you got the hose, the lines, goes to a plastic bracket right here in the back on the alternator. And there's a 10mm on a stud holding it. So you want to remove that 10mm nut off that stud on the back of the alternator. Okay, 3 power steering bolts and a nut for the line. Save them. Lift up the pump and the line off the back stud. It's a little tight, just pick it up and push it over here on top of the intake so it's out of the way. Next you want to do is work on your alternator. You want to unplug it, remove the little boot, remove the 13 off of here, remove the 15 there, and there's a 15 right here, and there's another 15 right here. 1, 2, 3. Here's the 2 back bolts for the alternator. And there's that nut for the charge wire cable. And this is the other one that went through the front for the alternator. You got the alternator out of there. Next we're going to do is disconnect this wire harness, undo the lock, press in the little clip, undo the fasteners, get this out of the way. Then you want to remove this bolt here. Okay, move that one. It's a 13 because you need to move this pipe around as well as that little bracket. Okay, and then you need to remove this 10 with the stud on it. And you need to move this 10 right here. It goes into the like a breather. No, it's a pipe. That's a for the bleeder for the coolant. Undo that one, lift that up, and then we need to pick this one up. Okay, get it out of there. There should be an O-ring in there as well. There's an O-ring right here. kind of flat. So see if you can get a new O-ring for that also. Okay, I picked it up out of it. It's just resting on it, no big deal. This is up out of the way. And I got another hose right here, undo this hose. Hopefully I can get in there because of the pulley. Okay, you got 3 over here. And you got the one on top, below the alternator. And then you got 4 over here. 3 on that black bracket, and that one. Stick a little screwdriver, not a little screwdriver, but a decent screwdriver in there, and pry it back. Break it loose. Okay? Now what you want to do is collect your bolts and keep them in order where they went, from right to left. Okay? Okay, here it is. What if this ain't a stupid idea, huh? I'm just glad they didn't make it out of plastic. Okay, well here's the one I had. Let's see. Looks like that. It was leaking right around in here. It's probably running down right around the base and coming out right there. See it? Same thing with this one. It's just gonna start leaking probably on that. Okay. Clean this surface up. Oil free. Same thing with the heads. Clean it up. And install your new gaskets. What you want to do is you want to stick your bolts through so the gasket kind of holds the bolt at the same time, and then drop it down in there and line it up and start your bolts. Okay. There's your gaskets. 35815, 35816. GoPro. Okay. Okay, I got them all cleaned up. I put a little sealer on them, and I got a couple bolts in the holes. I'll have to, once I get one of these other ones started, I can take these 2 out and put them underneath my bracket. No big deal. Okay, so it's all ready to go in. Make sure you get your sockets ready to use them to help turn them. Okay, get it down in there, get your bolts started, run them up equally. These that go on here, if you don't have this bracket on there, they will bottom out, so be aware of that. So, but anyway, if you're putting it on with this on there, then that's fine, and get them all started and equally tighten them up and get them snugged up. Put that one in last. Then you want to tighten your the 3 over here bolts, 37 foot-pounds, and the 4 over here to 37 foot-pounds, okay? And you can tighten that one for 37 foot-pounds also. All right, so now that you got those tightened, next you want to do is wipe off these O-rings. If you got an O-ring to put on there, you can put it on there. Just a coolant water pump bypass hose, and this is the tank reservoir return line. Otherwise, clean them up, put some brake clean on them, and then put a little bit of silicone around them, and then stick them back in there and put the bolts on them and tighten them up. Okay, got your lines on in there. Put your little bolt with the stud on that one. Put your other 10mm bolt there, just snug them up. Put your hoses on with your spring clamps. Connect your connector back up and put it in its fasteners. Put your alternator on. Remember that one separate bolt one here, and then the other bolt there, and then the one with the stud in the back. Tighten them up. And you got your battery connected, a nut for that, and your connector plugged in. Got these all tight, okay. Next is your power steering pump. Got it down inside here, and then put that little bracket on the stud, okay. Okay, you got your power steering pump in, you got your bolts tight, you got the little 10 tight in the back. Next you need to do is put your other pulleys on. Be careful because they might be on a step. And this one's got a step that's on the bolt, okay? So be careful with that, make sure it's centered on the pulley before you tighten it. Okay, now that you got your idlers on, 22 foot-pounds, 37 foot-pounds. Okay, top one's 37, the bottom one's 22. All right, get your belt on in all the grooves. Make a little map, you know. And then leave this smooth pulley for last. So that's when you're gonna slide on when you're pulling on the ratchet that way, okay? It might help if you put a little extender on that ratchet, you know, like a little pipe, give you a little bit more leverage. Okay, the belt is on. Make sure it's all the way around and all the grooves and everything, and make sure it's not missing one. All right, so now we need to put that mount bracket in there. And in case you're always wondering where the cam actuator is, the magnet, it's right there behind that bracket. All right. Okay, I got the bracket in there, got the bolt started. And one thing I forgot to tell you about this long bolt. I knew there was a spacer in there, I just didn't think about it. There's a spacer and it fell down here, so that's where it goes. So if you're gonna do a belt on this, you'll have to remove your air cleaner box, remove your mount, and remove the mount bracket, because you don't have to remove this mount bracket. All you need to do is loosen up a little bit, take this one out, and then pry this spacer out of there so you can get the belt out. And then you can snug them back up. What I've done in the past was pry them out and grind them down a little bit. Shh. But anyway, next I'll get these fairly close, not tight. I'll get them run up, then I can go down below and I can get the bottom one started. And then once I got that started, then I can tighten it up. And then I can lower it back down and I'll tighten these up. And then I'll put my engine mount in. Okay, you got that bracket bolt tight, torque it to 40 foot-pounds. And now you can put this inner fender well skirt back together with all your little 4 fasteners. And then we can lower it down and finish torquing our other bolts on that mount bracket. Okay, you got your motor mount bolts and nuts tight. Be 40 and 50. And then you can put your air cleaner box in. If you have one of them speed nuts, make sure you put the speed nut back where it belongs. Remember the 2 fat washers and the little washer. All right, tighten those up and now you can put the air cleaner tube on. Okay, air filter's on, master flow's plugged in. Got your 10 millimeter, got your air tube on the throttle body, you got the clamp tight. Put your breather back on, connect your battery, put your battery cover on, put your engine cover on. And then you need to put your tire on, okay? Put your tire on and torque it to 100 foot-pounds. Remove your jack or block of wood, whatever you have underneath it. And then when you feel your coolant is cured, not your coolant, your silicone is cured good enough, then you want to put coolant in it. And put your coolant in it, start it up, make sure you keep an eye on it, make sure it gets warmed up, double check the coolant level, make sure you got heat. If you got heat, that's pretty good. And then take it for a ride and double check your coolant level, and double check your codes, make sure you have no codes in the computer, clear them if you do, and make sure your temp gauge works, because that's one of the problems I'm trying to fix with the thermostat code also. And that's it. If I helped you out with this video, that's awesome. If you could help me out by subscribing to me, I appreciate it. Thank you. And the answer to the temperature gauge working is yes, it is working. So you probably have to replace the thermostat and clear the code, and that's probably what fixes it. But if you got coolant leaks and other things like that, then you got to fix those also.